Welcome back to our Healing for Your Child series. We are going to have a couple videos that are going to really help introduce this topic to you and give you some basic skills so that when we get to going through chapter by chapter, we can refer back to these skills. One of the things that I want to talk about today is a group of skills that I like to teach about for any age, really, but we're going to talk about this for kids called lack skills. This lack skills handout, it's laminated, so it's kind of indestructible if you've got kids. This is part of your book bundle that's available on the Trauma Healing Center website if you want to get the whole bundle for this series. Lack skills are what we need to be able to really slow down with our kids and really understand where they're coming from. What I have seen so many times when I am interacting with kids, but also especially when I'm interacting with parents, is that sometimes we kind of get in our head what our kids mean, what we think they mean, what they're trying to say. We make assumptions about their behavior, things that maybe trouble that they got into at school, or maybe something disrespectful they said at the dinner table. And we can kind of assume sometimes honestly the worst about them. And that goes a little bit back to that clipboard mentality that we talked about last time of we want them to be the best kids, right? The most respectful, the ones that the teachers rave about, the ones that nail that solid job straight out of college. And so when they say certain ways, or that note comes home from school, or they just absolutely refuse to go to bed at night ever, we kind of look at our clipboard and we're like, oh my gosh, this doesn't match. This doesn't match who they need to be a healthy adult. This doesn't match who they need to be successful. And that can make us tense. And then we can kind of push into them a little bit more that is helpful to try to get their behaviors in line. And when we do that, we kind of get this, I don't know, you want to do rock against rock, or kind of this entanglement we have with them. And it's kind of the battling of the wills. And if you find yourself in those conversations with your kids, I encourage you to slow down, take a breath. There's very little that could happen in that moment that is going to define their future. You being out of control can have a big impact on them in that moment, in that future. You being calm and really taking a few seconds to kind of clear your head, invite the Lord into the process, that is going to be so big for helping to build a really good foundation between you and your kids. And turn on your listening ears. So let's talk about that. So these lack skills come from, I work a lot with trauma survivors. I work with adults who have had a very traumatic childhood. Not exclusively, I have some other clients as well. This is a big part of what I do. And when you've had a really hard childhood, you've had some trauma happen, maybe some abuse happen, and even if your family was healthy, you can get into adulthood and still have some of the wounds from that, the scars, the beliefs that got rooted really deeply in a moment of trauma. And what I hear from survivors all the time is that they never had anyone who really understood them. If they make it to my office in their 40s and 50s and they're still dealing with that childhood trauma, chances are their parents didn't really understand them or know how to help them. Maybe they were the abusers, maybe they weren't. In school, they weren't really seen and heard. Usually they've seen different counselors, maybe been to different churches, and no one has really been able to understand what's going on inside of them. And so as I was putting together, okay, what do I do with trauma survivors that makes them feel seen and heard? Why does somebody leave my office after one visit and say, I've never felt this way before, when really I didn't feel like I did much of anything? I'm like, what am I doing that is bringing them to that place of feeling seen and known and understood and validated like they've never had in their life? And these were the skills I came up with for really simple things, hard to do, but very, very simple things that I'm going to teach you in today's video. We call them lack skills because it's what most trauma survivors are lacking in their life. This is what they don't seem to receive from the people around them. And likewise, if you do them, it can be transformative for your parenting and for you and your child. So lack, very simply, is LACK, and that stands for listening, attunement, curiosity, and kindness. So let's talk through that for a few minutes because it sounds basic. And maybe you say, I kind of already do those things. Well, if you're saying I kind of already do those things, then you probably need to work on them a little bit more because I want you to be to a place where you say, yes, this, that lack skills, this is what defines my relationship with my child. Jesus in me, Jesus' love for them, and my lack skills. They define my relationship with my child. So let's talk about listening, first of all. We, again, can have our own panic response to the things that our kids are going through. Maybe we're upset because of what a perpetrator did, or we're upset because of the unfairness, the injustice that they experienced. Or maybe you've got a child with an IEP and you've been battling the school system forever to try to get them the resources they need. That is, all of that is justifiable and understandable and valid, but that should not be how you come across with your child. Because very often, when we have that intensity, even though it's fighting for your child, sometimes kids can interpret that as they're the problem. Like, if I were just better, if I were smarter, and if that hadn't happened to me, then mom would be okay. Then dad wouldn't be so upset. Now, I know that that's probably never what you want as a parent, as a healthy parent or caregiver who loves the kids that we're around. We want our kids to know we're their allies. We are on your side in a good way. We're with you in this. We're fighting for you in this. And so if we want to convey that, then when we approach our child, we need to be able to make sure that we are emotionally regulated, that our intense emotions are not showing intensely, that we are there to be on their side. We will fight for them. We'll fight for them out there. But here, we're locked in as their ally and their friend. If you struggle with learning how to regulate your emotions, with learning how to reduce that intensity, especially when you're interacting with your kids, that is where the second book, we're not going to go through it, but we're going to touch on a lot of the information in this book, Building Bounce with Kids by Stephanie Hinman. That's available in the bundle, and you can buy it separately on our shop as well. A lot of this is going to help you learn how to regulate yourself so that you can co-regulate with your kids. If you're not familiar with those terms, we're going to get to them as we go through the series, or you can get the book and read ahead. Either way is fine. The goal is to be able to be regulated when you come to your kids. Now, it's okay to have some intensity if you're sad, if you're crying because what they went through was so hard and you're sad about it. Some intensity is okay. In fact, it's kind of healthy for that kid to know that you have feelings about the situation. We just have to make sure that our feelings are with them and not at them. And we'll talk about that again a little bit more as we go through. But let's talk about what these lack skills are. So let's talk about listening first. When we come to listen, we need to be open to what they have to say. And I always encourage people, whether it's a parent, a caregiver, a counselor, a pastor, whatever group I'm talking to, whatever helping group I'm talking to, I always encourage people to go into the conversation assuming there's something you don't know. Okay. That doesn't mean we're going on a dig with a shovel to find out what I don't know. But it means sometimes we go in assuming we know the full story already, so we have our full response. And when we go in that way, our full response likely does not match what actually happened. So we need to go in with an open mind. We need to go in really listening. Tell me about what happened at school today. Tell me about what was going on last night when you were having that really hard time going to bed. We need to listen in the moment too, if the crisis is in the moment. But sometimes the deepest conversations are held after the fact, when the child is maybe able to think and process a little bit better. I want to listen for things that I don't know about. I want to listen for things I don't understand. I want to listen for what emotion they're experiencing, because I may have thought it was just anger. They were just mad and they just flew off the cuff with no impulse control. If that's what I think, I'm going to respond in that way. But if I really listen, I may hear they were afraid. Or if I really listen, I may hear they were defending someone else. I have to really listen for what emotion they were feeling. So I'm picking up clues on the language they're using. Now we know kids at all different levels are different developmentally, and their language has developed differently. And so we need to keep that in mind, how our kids describe things, how they conceptualize things. It's different for each child, and that's part of the listening and learning who your child is. So as I'm listening for these clues about what they were thinking, what they were feeling, what was happening with them in whatever the situation is that I'm trying to parent and I'm trying to manage. I'm figuring out, is this a discipline? Is this an empathy? What do I need to do? As I'm listening and I'm identifying different emotions, I'm moving to that A, attunement. I want to attune to what they were feeling. So I may think you swung a punch at a kid at school, you were angry and you had no impulse control. But as I'm listening, I'm hearing, oh, they were afraid. That kid was picking on everybody and they thought they were going to get hurt. They thought that that person was going to hurt their friend. Now I'm hearing fear. So as I'm attuning to them, my response is changing. My thoughts about what happened is starting to change because it's attuning with them. So now I'm thinking, okay, they were afraid. So I may say something like, that sounds like it was a scary situation. And kids will kind of let you know pretty quickly if you've attuned correctly or not. They will sometimes, if you've done it wrong. So let's say I went through with well, maybe they were really mad. So let's say they weren't scared at all. And I say, man, that sounds really scary. They may say, I wasn't scared. Or they may just, oh, that's what I was supposed to feel. Kind of pull in and change their story to adapt to you. And if a child is highly compliant, which often is learned through trauma, not always, they will adapt to what you say. So you kind of have to watch for those clues. If you get it right, they are going to lean into it. They're going to be like, yeah, it was so scary. They'll agree with what you said. That sounds like it was really scary. And so now if I know, okay, I'm getting that right, now I'm thinking, if I was in that situation, I was really scared and I was a little kid, and I know that I was taught fighting is wrong and I shouldn't hit someone and I shouldn't be mean, but I don't know what to do and it feels really unsafe. What I would imagine is I might start feeling confused. So I'm afraid, I know what I've been taught, but I know what it feels like I should do, and now I'm confused. And so my attunement is now putting that out to the child. You were probably really confused. That's a hard situation to know what to do in that situation. Now, you and I in our adult brains may know you go get a teacher or you follow this path or you do that thing. But a child is not necessarily able to process and think that even into their teen years if they have some trauma and abuse in their past. They're not processing with their prefrontal cortex, the front of their brain where all the reasoning centers happen, because they're now in a fight or flight. They're in a panic moment, which is more in the back of the brain and more impulsive. And so it would be really confusing to know what to do. And so if they're leaning into that, yeah, it was confusing. I didn't know. I knew I would get in trouble, but I also knew I could get hurt. And so they're leaning into that. So I'm attuning correctly. I've listened well to their story. I'm attuning to what they were actually feeling, not my assumption when I came in that said you're grounded 2 weeks for punching someone at school. But I'm attuning, I'm listening. Now I'm going to the C in lack, curious. To tell me, like, what were the different things that you were thinking about doing? Tell me what were some of the other kids doing? And I'm helping them with my questions. I'm kind of helping them sort through all the chaos in their head, for one. Tell me the different things you were thinking. I'm helping them become more aware of that moment when it happened. What were the kids around you doing? Now, if they were really in a fight or flight, a panic or um, anxious moment, they may not know what anybody else was doing. Sometimes when any of us kids or adults get in those panic moments, we get tunnel vision and we can really only see what's right in front of us. Some people will even say their vision literally kind of closes in so that they only see right here. Some people will describe when they get in that high, anxious, intense state that everything just kind of gets fuzzy except for what they're looking at. So they may not know what was happening around them. Just asking the questions is kind of teaching their brain, okay, next time look at what's happening around you without me telling them to do that. So as I'm asking questions, what was happening around you? What were some of the different thoughts you had? what happened right before? What happened right after? Now, you know your child, and some kids respond well to questions. If you start asking those questions, they'll just start like their processing just verbally just starts tumbling out with information. Other kids, too many questions can shut them down. And if you're asking too many details in there, they are likely to just kind of, I don't know, I'm sorry. And then we know we've gone too far. If in any of these, the LACK, you realize you've gone too far, swing back to the beginning and start listening again because you need to bring it all down. So you need to be present without bombarding them with your words. And that's one value of that L for listening is we're present. We're not bombarding them with more stimulation because your words, even if it's healthy attunement or curiosity or any of that, our words can be overstimulating to a child if they feel like they are in trouble or if they feel like they're not giving you the right answers. And so when we go back to just listening, that helps their nervous system kind of calm down a little bit and they may be able to get back to that peaceful place. So I'm asking questions, trying to understand the situation better. The last one, K, is something that we should be doing all throughout the LAC. And K is for kindness. Kindness. That can be hard when there's so much intensity. And like I said, you may be upset with your child. You could also be upset with a bully. You could be upset with a teacher, with a perpetrator, with a grandparent, with a neighbor, whoever it might be. In that moment with a child, you need to make sure that they feel your heart. They feel your love for them. They feel kindness in your words. When you guess something and say, man, that must have been scary or you must have been overwhelmed and you get it wrong, they don't need you to be like, well, I don't know. What is it? You tell me. That's not kind. We got to stay in that kind place. Because if you're the person that you're caring for, that child is feeling the effects of that trauma or that abuse in that moment, and you start to get intense and they think it's at them, they're just going to still be stuck in the trauma. Kindness is what allows that trauma to start to move out of their body, to start to say, okay, I'm safe enough with you that I can be messy right here. And I'm not going to get punished. I'm not going to get hurt. I'm going to be heard. I'm going to be seen. Lack skills. When we get all the way through LACK, hopefully at that point, your child has de escalated. Whether it's something that they're talking about, we've mostly in this example used something that has happened, like at school during the day, the night before. But these lack skills work the same if it's happening in the moment. If they're throwing a temper tantrum at the dinner table, or if they're refusing to go to school in the morning, or whatever the in the moment is, these lack skills work the same. We want to pause the world. We want to be present with that child. We want to understand what's happening. Now, I want to interject something here because sometimes what happened was wrong. And sometimes there does need to be a consequence. And when that happens, we just need to make sure that we've done our full lack skill so we know the situation well, not an assumption about the situation, and not based off everyone else's story, but we've really given the child a chance to have a voice, child, teenager, whoever it is that you're working with. And then we need to make sure that if we move into consequence, that we are maintaining that kindness and we're still listening. We are still being attentive to what they're saying and how they're feeling. And that can be tricky because it feels opposite. And I wonder if maybe some of you who were listening as I was going through the lack skills is like, oh, great, this is one of those non-discipline programs. And it's like, no, because this consequences, discipline, healthy or natural outcomes of our mistakes can be really helpful to learn from. If there is a consequence that's needed, part of doing the lack skills helps you tailor it better to the situation. Where maybe you came in thinking, man, you need to be grounded for 2 weeks because you punched someone at school. And then you hear the whole story and you're like, wow, that would be a really hard situation for my 6-year-old to handle. Or that would be a really hard situation for my 13-year-old who grew up in a domestic violence situation to handle. I want to make sure that any consequences I give pair up not just with the behavior, but with what my child was thinking and feeling in the moment. And so, what I've experienced as I help coach parents is that when you've really heard them and used these lack skills well, they are typically receptive to whatever the consequence is. By that point, they've even processed it to the point where they realize the mistake that they've made. And often I find that kids welcome that discipline. There's some safety in that to know, okay, that's helping me know right from wrong. So maybe it's whatever it was happened. It's like, okay, so you know, you're probably not going to be able to do video games tomorrow, right? Yeah, I know. Okay. Or maybe for the week or for the weekend. You know, you're probably going to have to be grounded for a week after that. Yeah. And you may get the a week. And if I get that kind of pushback or a parent does, I may ask, what do you suggest? And because I want to know, like, how are they processing? Doesn't mean I'm going to go with their suggestion because maybe they're like an hour, like I could be grounded for an hour. That's awesome. I'll go play outside. It doesn't mean I'm going to go with their suggestion, but it means I'm still listening. I'm still using my lack skills. Okay, you think it should only be an hour? Why do you think that? Why do you think it should be an hour? And I'm not saying it in a sarcastic way. I'm not saying it in a way that says, I've already decided what's going to happen. So tell me what you want. Doesn't matter how the story ends. Because kids know. And they know you're teaching them helplessness. You're teaching them they have no voice. They have no power. They have no control. I want to know why. Why do you think that? And then maybe they give me a reason that's good enough. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. You are already getting a consequence at school. You're right about that. You've been so honest with me as we've talked about all of this. So instead of losing your video games or your phone privileges for a week, let's do it just for the next 3 days. And then let's see next time how maybe we can handle it different. So it's okay to be flexible. It's okay to adjust. We're not giving in. We're not getting run over as a parent. We're not teaching them bad things. We're teaching them flexibility and we're teaching them how to be relational with someone. Because if we should be relational at any time, I feel like it's during consequences because we want that child again to know we're on your side. Now, maybe the reason they give is kind of like, yeah, that's not really a good reason. This was a big deal. And so we just respond back with kindness. You know what? I still think it needs to be a week. So let's do it a week this time. And then if the situation comes up again, we'll see how you handle it. We'll see how you learned from this one. And then maybe during that week, you do some extra relational things with them, or at least offer that so that they know that part of their punishment or their consequence isn't losing you. Because we don't ever want the consequence to be breaking of relationship with us as the parent, as the caregiver. We want them to know, even when you're in the middle of that, I'm still on your side. I still love you. I still like you. And I am on your side. So those are the lack skills. And as we go through the series in the book, I'm going to be referencing these lack skills. And so you may need to come back and watch this video again. I know this one's a little bit long, but it's really important that we learn these relational skills with our kids, with the kids that we're caring for. That way they're not lacking in connection with you. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't, like this video, hit the notification bell, all the YouTube-y things so that you will get the next video when it comes out. Thanks for watching, guys.